thrown out by security like an unwanted stranger. Keanu Reeves quietly walked away from the private event he'd been invited to attend. Minutes later, the organizers realized their biggest guest, and the real reason sponsors had paid millions, was the man they had just humiliated. What followed turned a security blunder into a night of shocking apologies, unexpected kindness, and a twist no one saw coming. Everyone in the ballroom thought they knew exactly who mattered and who didn't. No one imagined that the quiet man in the black t-shirt by the door, the one people kept brushing past, was about to be thrown out like he didn't belong there at all. It was one of those glossy hotel nights where the chandeliers tried too hard. Crystal lights, designer gowns, the soft clink of champagne glasses, and a giant banner stretched across the far wall. A Night of Stars charity gala for children's futures. Cameras were ready, sponsors were nervous, and the organizers kept glancing at the entrance, waiting for the one guest who was supposed to make the whole event unforgettable. Near the doorway, that guest had just arrived alone, hands in his pockets, wearing a black blazer over a simple shirt, his hair a little messy from the wind. He smiled politely at the first security guard and stepped forward, expecting the usual quick check-in. Instead, the guard's arm slid across his chest like a closing gate. "Name," the guard snapped, eyes never rising from his tablet. "Keanu Reeves," he answered, calm, almost apologetic, as if he hated making anyone nervous. The guard's thumb flicked across the screen. No record, no digital badge, no special note. This was the new system, and mistakes weren't allowed. The guard's jaw tightened. Behind him, people with glittering invitations laughed their way inside, brushing past them like this was just traffic. Another guard joined in, broader shoulders, more impatient. "Sir, this is a private event. If you don't have a confirmation code, we can't let you through." Keanu pulled his phone out, thumb sliding across a maze of unread messages. Somewhere in there, his manager had sent the details, but the signal inside the marble lobby was terrible, and the email refused to load. He could feel eyes turning toward them now, that slow, spreading awareness when something in a perfect room goes wrong. Still, his voice stayed gentle. "I'm sorry, man. I was told I didn't need a code. I'm here for the kids' charity. I can wait while you..." The second guard had already decided. His new supervisor was watching from across the lobby, and he'd been warned. No mistakes, no gate crashers, no friends of friends slipping in because someone recognized their face. The last event had been chaos, and he was one bad call away from losing his job. He studied Keanu's plain black clothes, the lack of entourage, the absence of PR people buzzing around him like flies. "Sir, we've had people pretend to be celebrities before. I'm not arguing with you. You need to leave now." There was a sharpness in his tone that cut the air. For a breath, the whole lobby went quiet. Keanu's eyebrows lifted slightly, not in anger, but in surprise, like someone who had expected a small misunderstanding and found something colder instead. He could have raised his voice, dropped a famous name, demanded a manager, but he didn't. He just exhaled slowly, as if letting go of all the ways this moment could turn ugly. "All right," he said softly. "If that's what you need to do, I understand." The guards took that as permission. Large hands closed around his arms, not vicious, but firm, like they were moving a problem before anyone important could see it. He let them guide him back through the doorway, his boots sliding over the marble, the soft music behind him fading into the low hum of the hotel corridor. One of the guards, the first one, risked a quick sideways glance. Up close, the man did look a lot like, but it was too late now. Orders were orders. Out by the service exit, the night air was colder than it looked from inside. The city sounds floated in from the street. Car doors, distant sirens, the muffled beat of a club a few blocks away. The guards released him beside the loading dock where metal carts and crates of decorations were stacked beside the trash bins. For a second, no one spoke. Somewhere above them, on one of the hotel balconies, a couple laughed loudly, unaware that anything unusual was happening down below. "Nothing personal," the second guard muttered, adjusting his earpiece. "We just can't take chances." Keanu gave him a small, tired smile, the kind people give when they've already forgiven you before you've even finished your sentence. "I know you're just doing your job. Take care of yourself in there, all right?" he said, and there wasn't a trace of sarcasm in it. The first guard hesitated, guilt flickering across his face like a passing shadow. He had a little girl at home who'd once whispered, clutching a movie poster, that this man was her hero. For a heartbeat, his throat closed. You have a good night, sir," he managed, then followed his partner back inside, the heavy door thudding shut between them. From the narrow corridor by the kitchen doors, Maria had seen everything. She was only supposed to be checking that the dessert cart rolled out on time, but the raised voices had pulled her eyes to the lobby. She'd recognized him instantly. There were posters of him in her brother's room when they were kids, and they'd watched his movies on scratched DVDs until the discs wouldn't play anymore. She saw the confusion, the flash of hurt quickly hidden, the way he let himself be let out without fighting. Her heart pounded with a sharp mix of anger and shame. She knew the new head of security, strict, by the book, obsessed with not embarrassing his boss again. But this, throwing out the very guest the sponsors were counting on. She wiped her hands on her apron, breathing fast. Saying something could risk her job, but staying silent made her feel like she just watched someone push a kind stranger onto a bus going the wrong way. She slipped through the side door that led to the loading dock, hoping she wasn't already too late. The air outside smelled faintly of exhaust and cold metal. She scanned the shadows around the dumpsters and stacked crates, searching for that familiar silhouette. For a moment she thought he'd already left. Then she saw him a few meters away, sitting on an overturned crate, elbows on his knees, phone in his hands, the light from the screen painting his face in soft blue. He wasn't calling anyone. He was just staring at a picture his manager had texted earlier. Rows of hospital beds, small bald heads, paper crowns, and crayon signs that read, "Thank you for believing in us." This gala was for them. He said yes the moment he heard about it, not for the cameras, but for the chance to look those kids in the eye and tell them they were braver than any hero he'd ever played. A delivery van pulled up to the alley, its back doors swinging open with a screech. A young woman climbed out, struggling with 3 heavy boxes stacked too high for her to see over. A small boy around 10 jumped down after her, thin arms reaching for the lowest box, eager but clearly overwhelmed by the weight. "Careful, Mateo," the woman warned, her voice strained. "These are the special desserts. If we drop them, I don't get paid." The boy paused, panting, and that's when he noticed the man sitting on the crate. "Mom," he whispered, eyes going wide. "He looks just like..." Before he could finish, Keanu was already on his feet, slipping his phone into his pocket. "Hey," he said gently, taking the top 2 boxes as if they weighed nothing at all. "Let me help before your hero desserts become abstract art." The boy stared, stunned. The mother blinked twice, then laughed nervously, assuming it was just some kind stranger with a familiar face. "Thank you, we're late. They told us this actor guy is coming tonight and the kids designed them, for him." She corrected herself clumsily, worried about sounding like a fan in front of a stranger. Keanu glanced down at the labels on the boxes, his chest tightening. Each one had a child's name and a short message. "For the man who taught me not to give up. For the one who fights bad guys but is nice in real life too." He swallowed hard, then looked at the boy. "Big fan of action movies, huh?" he asked. Mateo nodded slowly, still not entirely sure whether he was dreaming. "Yeah, my favorite actor never uses stunts when it matters. My uncle says he does the hard parts himself, 'cause he respects the crew." Keanu's smile deepened, touched with a kind of fragile sadness. "Sounds like a good guy," he said softly. "Hope he shows up for you tonight." Mateo's brow furrowed. Are you really not?" Before the words could land, the service door swung open behind them. Harsh light spilled into the alley, and Maria stepped out, face pale, eyes wide with something that looked a lot like panic. Her gaze locked on Keanu, then on the dessert boxes in his hands, then shot back toward the glowing hallway inside as if she just realized how badly the night was about to fall apart. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking as the sound of distant applause leaked from the ballroom. "They're about to announce you on stage, and nobody in there knows you're standing out here." Stage noise spilled into the alley in broken waves. Music, laughter, the distant echo of someone testing a microphone, while Maria tried to catch her breath. Her hands were shaking so badly, she almost dropped the tray list she was still clutching. Keanu stood in front of her with those dessert boxes balanced easily in his arms, calm in a way that made her panic feel even louder. "They think you're backstage already," she blurted out. The host is about to call your name. The sponsors, the kids, everyone's waiting. Security, her voice snagged. Saying out loud what had just happened felt like confessing to a crime she hadn't committed but still carried in her chest. He studied her face for a second, reading the fear there. Not fear of him, but fear of losing everything she'd worked for over one stupid mix-up. A soft, almost tired smile tugged at his mouth. "Hey, hey," he said quietly. "Breathe, it's okay. Nobody's dying, right?" He tilted his head, listening to the music inside. "We've still got a few minutes. You're Maria, right?" he guessed. She nodded, surprised he'd even ask for her name. "Yes, sir. I'm just a coordinator. This is my first big event. If they find out I saw and didn't say anything." "I'm the one who didn't say anything," he interrupted gently. "You just showed up to help. That makes you the bravest person out here." His gaze flicked to the boy and his mother beside them. "And we've got precious cargo to deliver. Come on, let's get these inside before the desserts become legends we tell about what almost happened." Mateo edged closer, staring up at him. "So you are Keanu Reeves," he whispered, testing the name like it might still vanish if he said it too loudly. Keanu shifted one of the boxes to one arm and offered his free hand. "Last time I checked," he said with a little grin. "But you can call me Keanu. What's your name?" "Mateo," the boy breathed. His hand disappeared in Keanu's. "My uncle says your movies helped him not give up when he was sick." "Your uncle sounds tough," Keanu replied. "I'd like to meet him someday." He nodded toward the service door. "Right now, how about you be my stunt double and lead the way? You know this place better than I do." Mateo straightened his narrow shoulders as if he'd just been given a secret mission. He pushed the heavy door with both hands and held it open. Warm air and the smell of garlic, chocolate, and stress rushed over them. The kitchen corridor was a moving river of waiters, chefs, and dishwashers, every one of them trying to squeeze past the others without dropping trays or tempers. No one looked glamorous here. This was the machinery behind the sparkle. Maria slipped ahead, carving a path. "Backstage is this way," she called over her shoulder. "Careful, hot plates on the left." A passing chef shouted something in Spanish, nearly colliding with them. Keanu twisted sideways, lifting the dessert boxes high, body moving with that quiet, practiced control that had sold a million action scenes. The near miss turned into a strange ballet of trays and boxes, ending with nothing broken and the chef staring at him in stunned recognition. "Lo siento," the chef muttered, then blinked, realizing exactly whose desserts he'd almost destroyed. "Madre mia." Keanu just smiled and kept walking. As they turned a corner, the sound shifted. Less clatter, more bass, the dull roar of a crowd beyond thin walls. Maria's chest tightened again. Back here, she was no one. But tonight, somehow, she was the person leading the main guest into the building he'd been thrown out of. "Listen," she said, dropping her voice. "About security, the supervisor, he's really strict. He messed up at another event and almost lost his job. I don't think he meant to." "I know," Keanu answered softly. "He saw a guy who didn't look the part and made a choice. We all do that sometimes. Don't worry about him or about yourself. I'm not here to get anyone fired." She glanced at him, startled by the easy forgiveness in his tone. "You're not angry." He exhaled slowly, eyes thoughtful. "I've had much worse nights," he said. "And I've seen people thrown out of a lot more than ballrooms. As long as we make it right for the kids, I'm okay." They reached a narrow door marked "Backstage, Authorized Personnel Only." The deeper thump of music pulsed through the frame. A headset-wearing stage manager nearly slammed into them as he burst through, eyes wild. "Where have you?" he started, then stopped when he saw who Maria was standing with. His pupils dilated. "Oh, thank God, everyone's losing their minds in there. We thought you bilayed. Sponsors are threatening to walk. The director is." A voice thundered from the speakers beyond the curtain, muffled but clear enough to make every muscle in the hallway go rigid. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host boomed, "the man you've all been waiting to see tonight." The crowd erupted before the name was even spoken. The walls shook with applause, cameras flashing just beyond the heavy black curtain. The stage manager grabbed Keanu's arm, half guiding, half dragging him toward the entrance. The dessert boxes were whisked from his hands by a passing assistant, almost ripped away. Through a small gap in the curtain, bright white light seared his eyes, and he could just make out the glittering sea of faces, all turned toward the empty stage. Please welcome, in support of the children who refuse to give up, Keanu Reeves. The applause became a storm. Spotlights swung to the center of the stage, waiting for a figure who was still standing in the shadows. Keanu looked down at his empty hands, remembering the names written on those boxes, then glanced at Maria. Fear and hope fought in her eyes. For the first time that night, he didn't move right away. He stood there, heart steady but heavy, wondering if he should step into that light like nothing had happened, or if it was finally time to say something the room might not want to hear. Light cut through the gap in the curtain like a blade, painting a bright line across his shoes. The stage manager was yelling into his headset, he's here, stand by," while his fingers twitched toward Keanu's back, too afraid to push and too desperate not to. On the other side of the curtain, hundreds of people were on their feet, clapping for the idea of a man they hadn't actually seen yet. Keanu took a slow breath, feeling the weight of the night settle across his shoulders. The memory of the alley, the firm hands on his arms, the cold wind on his face, all passed through him like a quick shadow. Then he stepped forward. The curtain parted around him and the ballroom exploded. Phones shot into the air like a field of glowing stars. People shouted his name, some half standing on their chairs for a clearer view. Sponsor logos glowed from towering screens. The host grinned too wide, sweating under the stage lights as he swept an arm toward Keanu like he'd personally conjured him out of thin air. "There he is," the host crowed. "Our hero of the night." Keanu winced inwardly at the word hero, but kept his face open, his walk unhurried. He moved to center stage, nodded a greeting, and waited for the applause to soften. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see a row of VIP tables, expensive dresses, shiny watches, people already lining up their phones for the perfect photo to post with a heartfelt caption and a casually visible bottle of sponsor champagne. The host handed him a slim card with his prepared remarks, fingers trembling with relief. "We had a speech ready," he whispered under his breath. "Just stick close to the teleprompter, okay? The director is." Keanu slipped the card into his pocket without looking at it. "Good evening," he said into the microphone, his voice low but carrying easily. The room quieted in layers, clapping fading into rustles into stillness. I almost came in through the wrong door." Laughter rippled through the crowd, easy and immediate. The host sighed with visible relief, taking it as a harmless little joke that would smooth everything over. Somewhere near the front, the security supervisor's spine turned to ice. He watched from the shadows by the wall, recognizing every word as a fuse he himself had lit. "I got a little lost," Keanu continued, eyes drifting over the tables, over the bright decorations, the crystals catching light that could have lit a whole hospital ward. "Happens to the best of us, right? You think you're supposed to be in one room, and suddenly you find yourself standing outside, wondering if you belong there at all." The laughter softened, grew uncertain as people tried to decide if he was still joking. He let the silence stretch for a heartbeat longer than was comfortable, then smiled, gentle and disarming. "But I met some good people by the wrong door," he added. "People carrying heavy boxes and dreams that are even heavier. People who work behind the scenes so the rest of us can pretend this all just happens." Backstage, Maria watched from the wings, hidden behind a lighting rig. Mateo stood on a crate beside her, neck craned, eyes shining. In his small hands, he held one of the dessert boxes like a sacred object. The chef had insisted it be kept safe until the right moment. And now the boy clung to it as if that moment was about to walk onto the stage and shake his hand. In the dim side corridor, the first security guard leaned against the wall, stomach knotted. Every word from the podium felt like a quiet accusation he deserved. His radio crackled with instructions. Keep the exits clear, watch the fans near the ropes. But all he could hear was the echo of his own voice from earlier. "Sir, you need to leave now." On stage, Keanu let his gaze travel to the back of the hall, to the doors most people pretended not to see. "So before we talk about movies and cameras and whatever you expected me to say," he went on, "I want to say thank you. To the people in the kitchen, the staff, the crew, the security, the volunteers. The ones who set the tables and carry the trays and stand by the doors so the rest of us can feel important for a few hours. A scattered burst of applause started from a table near the back, then grew as more people followed, some clapping out of politeness, some with real conviction they hadn't realized they had. The security guard in the shadows felt something twist in his chest. He didn't deserve to be included in that gratitude, but somehow he was. Keanu nodded, accepting the sound on their behalf. "And I want to talk about the kids," he said, his tone softening. "Because that's why we're here, right? Not for me, not for the cameras, for the kids who are in hospitals tonight instead of at home, for the parents who would give anything to switch places with them." Images appeared on the big screens, smiling children in hospital gowns, paper crowns on their heads, IV poles decorated with stickers. Some photos were bright and loud, others were quietly devastating. A murmur moved through the room. "I saw some of their messages earlier," he continued. "They made desserts for tonight. They wrote things like, 'Thank you for believing in me, and thank you for fighting bad guys but being kind in real life.'" His throat tightened for just a second. "I don't know if I deserve that, but I know they do. They deserve every bit of fight we've got." Maria felt her eyes sting. Beside her, Matteo hugged the box tighter, as if the words on it might float away without the pressure of his hands. On the floor, the event director watched from the VIP table, his smile polished but brittle. This was fine, he told himself. Emotional on brand, good for publicity. As long as Keanu stuck to the script, everything would translate nicely into tomorrow's headlines and donor reports. But then Keanu glanced toward the wings, searching until he found Maria and Matteo in the shadows. His face lit with a real smile, the kind nobody could fake. "There's a boy backstage right now," he said, and the cameras instinctively began to hunt for him. "He helped carry those desserts in when I was taking the scenic route." Light laughter again. "He and his mom are working tonight, not sitting at a table. Would you guys mind if they came out here for a second?" The stage manager almost swallowed his headset. "No, no, no," he hissed into the mic. "We're not cleared for—" But the crowd had already turned in their seats, everyone curious, softened by the sincerity in Keanu's voice. It was too late to stuff the moment back into its box. Maria froze as a spotlight swung clumsily toward the wings, catching her in its edge. Matteo's fingers dug into the cardboard. "He means us," the boy whispered, somewhere between terror and joy. "Go," Maria breathed, even though her own legs felt like they'd turned to water. A second later, Keanu was there, reaching a hand down from the edge of the stage to help them up, like pulling two ordinary people into a story that had never been written for them. "This is Matteo," he told the crowd, resting a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "And this is his mom, who's working harder than anyone out there tonight." The room clapped, some politely, some with real warmth. Matteo blinked against the lights, then dared a small wave. Keanu took the dessert box gently from him and turned it so the nearest camera could catch the crayon message on the lid. The words bloomed 20 feet high on the big screen. "Thank you for not giving up on US." He swallowed, emotion flickering raw and unhidden across his face. "They wrote this for me," he said. "But I think we should read it as a promise to them. We don't give up on you. Not tonight. Not when the spotlight is gone, not when it's inconvenient or messy or when the cameras are pointed somewhere else." The room was very quiet now. Even the clink of cutlery had stopped. "So I want to do something that wasn't in the plans," he said, turning slowly to face the tables, the sponsors, the director, everyone. "If you'll let me." Backstage, the director's heart rate spiked. Unscripted was the most dangerous word in events like this. Unscripted meant uncapped commitments, messy accounting, expectations you couldn't quietly adjust later. He leaned toward the stage manager, his voice a razor-edge whisper. "What is he doing?" On stage, Keanu lifted the microphone a little higher, eyes steady. "Tonight, every dollar you give, I'm going to match it, personally, up to the last cent. And I'm asking the organizers to promise that it goes straight where it's supposed to go. To treatment, to support, to the kids and their families, not to more chandeliers or fancy dinners." A sharp gasp rippled through the VIP tables. Some people burst into immediate applause, stirred by the magnitude of the promise. Others glanced at the director, calculating, suddenly aware that the spotlight had shifted from charity as performance to charity as accountability. The director's jaw clenched. Matching donations on that scale would change everything about the budget they'd quietly built. And having the use of funds called out live on a hot mic boxed him into a corner he'd never intended to stand in. "Pull him after this," he told the stage manager, voice low and tight. "As soon as he steps off that stage, he comes with me. We're going to have a very serious conversation." From her place at the edge of the lights, Maria saw the director's face harden and felt a chill slide down her spine. Keanu had just given the night a new heart, but in doing it, he'd also made himself a target for the people who liked the old one exactly the way it was.